watching Unplugged TV India. This is Alice Francis. Let's begin with today's top stories. IT department raids NSE former MD and CEO Chitra Ramkrishna's house for sharing trade info. 2008 Ahmedabad serial blast, 38 convicts sentenced to death, 11 to suffer life imprisonment. Anti-CAA protest, Supreme Court asked Uttar Pradesh Govt to refund to the protesters. 2 killed, 40 injured as school bus overturns in Jaisalmer, Rajasthan. Cannot escape from mismanaging country by blaming Nehru, says Dr Manmohan Singh to BJP-led government. Arvind Kejriwal calls himself world's sweetest terrorist over allegation of supporting separatist movement in Punjab. Hijab, Aligarh college bans entry with religious headscarf. New labour policy adopted in Belgium as employees to now work 4 days a week. The Income Tax Authority conducted a search at Chitra Ramkrishna's Mumbai home in Chembur on Thursday. Ramakrishnan was the Managing Director and Chief Executive Officer of the National Stock Exchange. The hunt comes after market regulator Securities and Exchange Board of India, SEBI, learned that Ramakrishna is sending sensitive information to a Himalayan yogi. According to the findings of the SEBI probe, Ramakrishnan, who resigned in December 2016, shared certain NSE internal confidential information with an unknown person via email between 2014-2016, including information on the NSEs, organizational structure, dividend scenario, financial results, human resource policies and related issues, response to regulator and so on. For disclosing the information, the market regulator fined her Rs 3 crore in addition to irregularities in the selection of a senior official, Anand Subramanian, for which the NSE and top management were also accountable. In making decision about Subramanian's compensation, Ramakrishna stated she was instructed by a yogi in the Himalayas. Subramanian served as NSE's top strategy advisor from April 1, 2013 till April 1, 2015. She was redesignated as Group Operating Officer and Advisor to the Managing Director and Chief Executive Officer. Furthermore, according to the forensic audit conducted by consultant company, Subramanian was the one who directed Ramakrishna to perform the aforementioned steps. According to SEBI, the NSE and its board of directors willfully chose not to report the incident to the regulator, preferring to keep it a secret. As per reports, it is the second time that the Income Tax Department has conducted raid at the NSE's former MD's house. The last raid was conducted in 2017. After waiting for more than 13 years, the special court appointed for the speedy trial of the 2008 Ahmedabad serial bomb blast has sentenced 38 of the 49 convicts to death, while remaining 11 convicts have been penalized with life imprisonment. The court announced the punishment under provisions of the Unlawful Activities Act and Section 302 of the Indian Penal Code. Pronouncing the judgment, Special Judge A.R. Patel awarded a compensation of Rs 1 lakh to those who died in the blast. He also awarded a compensation of Rs 50,000 for victims with serious injuries and Rs 25,000 for those with minor ones. Usman Agarbattiwala, the only one convict under the Arms Act and among those sentenced to death, has been additionally awarded a year of imprisonment for conviction under the Arms Act. The special court had on February 8 held 49 people guilty of carrying out a terror strike in Ahmedabad. On July 26, 2008, 21 bombs rocked the city within the span of 17 minutes, killing 56 people and injuring more than 200 others. In this terrorist attack, hospitals were targeted for the first time in the country. Ahmedabad Municipal Corporation run LG Hospital was among the targeted sites, along with buses, parked bicycles, cars, etc. In a blast that took place at the civil hospital, 37 people lost their lives. One blast also took place at LG Hospital, but no one was injured there. The Indian Mujahideen had claimed responsibility of the terror strike and termed the act as reprisal of the 2002 riots. On February 8, the special judge declared 49 of the total 78 accused as guilty under various offences of the Indian Penal Code, including the former murder, sedition and waging war against the state, as well as under offence of the UAPA Explosive Substances Act. The Supreme Court on Friday directed the Uttar Pradesh government to refund crores of rupees recovered from anti-CAA protesters in view of proceedings initiated in 2019. The Uttar Pradesh government on Friday informed the apex court that it had withdrawn 274 notices issued recovery of damages to public properties during the Anti-Citizenship Act protests. A bench of Justices D.Y. Chandrachud and Surya Kant said the state government will refund the entire amount worth crores of rupees recovered from the alleged protesters due to the proceedings initiated in 2019. The apex court granted liberty to the Uttar Pradesh government to proceed against alleged anti-CAA protesters under the new law, Recovery of Damages to Public and Private Property Act, notified on August 31, 2020. The bench refused to accept the submission of Additional Advocate General Garima Prasad that the protesters and the state governments will be allowed to move to the claim tribunal instead of direct refunds. 2 children died and 40 others sustained injuries when a speeding school bus they were travelling in lost control and overturned in Rajasthan's Jaisalmer. At present, 20 children have been referred to AIIMS Jodhpur. The condition of one child is serious due to the head injuries. A private school bus carrying roughly 40 children overturned while turning a curve because it was speeding. The 2 kids died were aged 12 and 14. Several additional youngsters were injured in the tragedy. At the moment, AIIMS in Jodhpur has referred to those 20 children. The driver has been apprehended according to the police and legal action has been launched against him. Rajasthan CM Ashok Gehlot has expressed condolences over the deaths while tweeting about the incident. Taking a dig at the Modi government, former Prime Minister and Congress leader Manmohan Singh, in a scathing attack through a video message, said that the BJP government cannot escape the responsibility for mismanaging the country by blaming the country's first Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru. Dr. Singh, in his first video for the Punjab voters ahead of the February 20 elections, said that the one should not be cognizant of the Prime Minister's office dignity. Those who used to accuse him of being deafeningly quiet and leading a weak and corrupt administration were now exposed. The BJP has been in power for more than 7 years and is still blaming previous Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru for people's troubles. Dr. Singh said that the Congress had never divided the country for political gains or concealed the truth, while the central government has many issues, including the farmers' agitation, foreign policy, price rises and unemployment. A few days ago, in the name of the Prime Minister's security, an attempt was made to defame CM Charanjit Singh Channi and the people of the state. He said, referring to the security breach of a flyover in Firozpur during the Prime Minister's visit to the state. During the farmers' agitation too, an attempt was made to defame Punjab and Punjabian. Dr. Singh added. Delhi Chief Minister Arvind Kejriwal on Friday called himself the world's sweetest terrorist while responding allegations of his support towards the separatist movement in Punjab that will go to polls on Sunday. The national convener of the Aam Aadmi Party slammed Prime Minister Narendra Modi, Punjab Chief Minister Charanjit Singh Channi and Congress leader Rahul Gandhi for labeling him a terrorist during a conference. All of these politicians have banded together to accuse me of plotting to partition the country into 2 halves, with me as Prime Minister of one of them. This is, said Kejriwal. He inquired as to what the security services at the centre had been doing up until now, given that the political leaders had labelled him as a terrorist. What have agencies been doing since the Congress and BJP took office? Why didn't they detain me? He went on to say, this is such a funny matter. During the press conference, the AAP national convener further stated, perhaps I am the world's sweetest terrorist who builds hospitals, schools and a senior citizen pilgrimage scheme. He also chastised Modi for raids on his home and office by government agents, claiming that nothing was discovered. In an interview, former aide Kumar Vishwas stated Kejriwal was willing to accept support from fringe and separatist forces to become Punjab CM. According to Kejriwal, a poet predicted that I would split the country in half. Following him, Rahul Gandhi made the same accusation, which was then echoed by the PM Modi. I am grateful to this poet for catching me when the government couldn't. The Delhi Chief Minister further accused the Congress and the BJP for treating national security issues lightly. For these folks, I am a terrorist. I am a Bhagat Singh disciple. Bhagat Singh was labelled a terrorist by the British a century ago, and now history is repeating itself, with all these corrupt politicians labelling Bhagat Singh's followers as a terrorist. He added, in the midst of a blazing debate in Karnataka over limitations put on Muslim girls wearing the hijab to educational institutions, a college in Uttar Pradesh Aligarh region has forbidden students from wearing any dress that could be ascribed to religion. According to reports, DS College in Aligarh has forbidden students who are not clothed in the prescribed uniform from entering the college premises. We will not allow students to access the campus with veiled faces, stated Dr. Rajkumar Verma, the college's principal. On college grounds, students are not permitted to wear a saffron stole or hijab as well. The orders came only days after Aligarh Muslim University students organized a protest march on campus to show sympathy for their colleagues in the southern state who are fighting for the freedom to wear the headscarf. As they marched across campus, they were observed carrying placards and shouting slogans. They also issued a written statement in which they described the hijab ban as an affront to their fundamental right. After an event in Karnataka in which a young girl protesting the ban was hounded by a mob of vandals, he felt obligated to fight a protest. We admire Karnataka's brave girls, the message added. Meanwhile, once the government reopened educational institutions in Karnataka, numerous Muslim students have continued to defy the prohibition on their admittance into pre-university colleges for wearing the hijab. Protests were held in colleges across Chikmagalur, Udupi, Shivamogga, Gadak and Chitradurga districts. As the chaos continued, authorities threatened to charge a group of angry students with wrongful restraints and expel from their college. The Karnataka High Court is now hearing the case. The court issued an interim ruling last week prohibiting students from wearing religious clothing to the educational institutions until a final decision is reached. Belgium's government agreed to a new labor agreement earlier this week, allowing its employees to work for 4 days a week in an effort to introduce flexibility to the country's tight labor market. With this new change, the Belgium has joined an ever-growing list of countries that now provide a 4-day work week. Prime Minister Alexander De Croo said the development is part of a significant COVID-era shake-up of labor laws after his 7-party coalition federal government reached an agreement overnight. The adjustments will not be enacted immediately. Unions will have a say on a draft bill before any amendments are made, and the legislation will be scrutinized by the Council of the State Board, the Parliament votes. The United Arab Emirates became the first country to implement a 4-day work week in December 2021. In September of last year, Scotland began a 4-day work week trial. Ireland, Japan and Spain have all stated that they will experiment with 4-day work weeks in 2021. Daily commute for millions thrown out of whack due to major strike at Paris Metro. On Friday, a huge strike shut down the majority of Paris's metro system and city train grid, interrupting millions of people's daily commutes. Workers are demanding salary raise. Canadian police to put an end to protesters fighting COVID measures in Ottawa. Hundreds of truck drivers from Ottawa are said to be ejected on Friday after staging a 3-week protest against pandemic restrictions that have paralyzed the capital and accused Prime Minister Justin Trudeau to declare an emergency for the first time in more than 15 years. US Secretary Antony Blinken wants to prevent war, urges Russia to use diplomacy. The US Secretary of State Antony Blinken wants to prevent the Russian invasion into Ukraine. He urges Russia to use diplomacy. Niger's president stated on Twitter on Friday that French and European special forces will be deployed into its territory from neighboring Mali to secure the border area with the West African country. Thank you for watching Unplugged TV India. This is Alice Francis. If you liked the video, please hit like, subscribe and share.